Hello guys, how are you?
I'm Hardeep Singh. Welcome back to your own YouTube channel. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test, and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys participate in everyday listening and reading practice test to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Press the bell icon for the upcoming notifications. Don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams.
Part 1.
You will hear a conversation between the manager and a customer in a restaurant. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6.
Good afternoon, Delano's Restaurant. How can I help you?
Hi, can you tell me how late you're open at weekends?
Yes, of course. On the weekends, including Friday night, we're open till midnight.
Okay, that's great. Do you take reservations?
Of course. Let me just get a reservation form. So, first of all, can I have your name, please?
Sure, my family name is Matteo.
That's M-A-T-E-O.
Yes,
And your first name?
it's Kirsten.
Was that Kristen?
No, I'll spell it for you. K-I-R-S-T-E-N.
Sorry about that.
No problem, I'm quite used to it.
Okay, I'll just run through all the details about the booking with you. But before I do that, I'd better get your contact number now, just in case I forget to do it later. Is that okay?
Sure, it's area code 734 and the number is 6778111.
Okay, so when would you like to book?
Next Friday?
As in the 7th, correct?
Yes, at 8 p.m. if you have room for us.
Let's see. How many people are you booking for?
We've got, let's see, 3 couples, my brother 2, and my parents, of course. So that's 9 adults. And is it all right to bring infants?
Yes, that's no problem. We have special seats for them.
Actually, we'll have 2 coming. But don't worry, they're well behaved and they'll probably sleep the whole time. They won't need seats.
Fine. Just bear in mind that it might be quite noisy in the restaurant at that time.
Oh, that's cool. We just want the whole family to be there together for the dinner.
Is it a special occasion?
Yes, it's my parents' wedding anniversary. 35 years together.
That's fantastic. Okay, so to make sure that everyone has a great time on this special day, I'd like to discuss our food options now, so that we can be prepared.
Okay, great. I've heard great things about your menu.
Yes, you definitely won't be disappointed. Now, is there anyone in the group who has special dietary requirements?
Oh, yes. Both my sister and brother have an allergy to nuts. We usually just avoid them altogether. We like to try each other's dishes and it makes it easier.
Right, that's important. I'll just make a note of that.
Oh, don't worry. They'll remind you for sure. Oh, one more thing I almost forgot to mention. My father's recovering from surgery and for the time being he's in a wheelchair. Are there any stairs or anything that could make it difficult for him?
Good question. We do have stairs outside, but we also have a ramp. It shouldn't be a problem at all. We'll make a special place for him at the table.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
If you want, you can place your orders now while you're on the phone.
Well, I think everyone will want to make their own choices, but it might be nice to have a few starters prepared in advance.
May I suggest some of our salads? We have a great white bean salad and another with basil and tomatoes.
Oh, well, they sound good, but
Or how about our famous stuffed mushrooms?
yes, those sound good. Could we have them? And maybe something with bread. Do you make your own bread at the restaurant?
Yes, our bread is fantastic, fresh from the oven. We serve that with our homemade pesto, if you think you'd like that.
What else is there?
Well, for something a bit different, you could try our salmon fritters. They always get good reviews.
Yeah, they sound nice. Okay, those two will do. And everyone can decide if they want salads or bread when they get there.
Wonderful. I'll just write that down. Right, so is there anything else that we can do to make the celebration more memorable? We often do special cakes for these kinds of occasions.
Well, Dad isn't supposed to eat much sugar, so what about decorations? Could you set up some balloons or something like that?
Absolutely. We've done that kind of thing before.
And I don't suppose you have live music. We could request that the band sings their favourite song.
Unfortunately, they only play on Saturdays and Sundays. But we can try to make the music special. I'll tell you what, if you can create a CD of their favourite music, we can play it during part of the dinner.
Yes, that'd be fantastic. They'll love it. And we'll have a special gift as well. Thanks, that all sounds wonderful.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
You will hear the Human Resources Manager talking to new employees about the rules in the workplace. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Hello and welcome. I'm going to give you a brief induction to working with us at Compass Construction. First, I'll be covering basic health and safety requirements. Next, information about timesheets and pay, and some guidelines around workplace behavior and dress codes. Finally, I'll finish by explaining our emergency procedures. Right, health and safety. As your employer, we have an obligation to take all reasonable steps to ensure your safety at work. This is our responsibility by law, and we take it very seriously. But you also have responsibility for your own safety. That means you're required to follow safety requirements and keep yourself and others safe. Employees who fail to do so will receive formal warnings. So, what happens in the unlikely event that you or someone else is hurt or almost hurt at work? Report it. A serious accident? Report it. Stub your toe? Report it. We also require employees to report near misses. A near miss being a fancy way of saying an accident waiting to happen. Almost slipping on a wet floor, for example. It's important to report near misses because if you don't, someone could get hurt next time round. So, the incident report forms are kept at reception. Linda will show you how these need to be filled in and filed. If you're unable to attend work for any reason, We ask that you give us at least 4 hours notice before your shift begins. But of course, the more notice we get, the better. Now, you'll be working with us on a part-time basis, so you'll have to fill out a timesheet each week. You need to complete this daily. Then, at the end of the week, ask your supervisor to sign it and email a copy to your manager by 5 p.m. on Friday.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
Right, next. Accepted standards of behavior. It may seem obvious, but work isn't the place for silly behavior. In our industry, we can't have people fooling around, especially with the equipment and machinery we have here on site. It's too easy for something to go wrong. There's also no place for swearing, bullying, or harassment at work. So if you're at all concerned at any time, please talk directly to your manager about this. Finally, what to do if there's a disaster of some sort. Dress codes first. Like all our office employees, you need to wear the standard white shirt with the company logo. You'll be provided with 2 of these. You wear your own trousers or skirt, which must be black, tidy, and smart. No jeans, and always black. In your role, you'll mostly be on reception. However, you may occasionally be asked to do something that requires you to go into the workshop area. In that case, you'll need to be decked out in proper PPE, personal protective equipment, steel-capped boots, a vest, and, depending on what you're doing, gloves and a hard hat. The gloves are needed for any task that requires contact with dangerous chemicals, for instance. All the PPE is kept in the room before the workshop, which we passed through earlier. Right, now finally, if there's a fire or other disaster and the fire alarm sounds, you need to leave immediately. Don't try to go out the glass doors because they're automatic and may not be operating. The fire exit is through the door to the right of the main glass doors. When you exit, leave everything behind, including your bag, keys, and phone. People often fumble around wasting precious time when there just isn't time for that. So it's a company policy to take yourself to safety and nothing else. Once you exit the building, you need to make your way to the nearest assembly point, which from reception is just over there, in front of the big oak tree in the car park. We have drills every 6 months, so that will give you a chance to go through the drill. The last one was in January, I think, so the next one will be in a couple of weeks, early June, I believe. So that's my presentation. I know there's a lot to take in, but look, if there's something you don't understand, just ask. Everyone expects new people to ask questions, so don't be shy. Ask away. Right, I'll take a few questions now, and then I'm going to hand you over to Steve, who will give you an overview of the company's hazard management plan. Although you're working on reception, which should be relatively free of hazards, you need to know the process for identifying something that could cause harm. That is, if you notice a hazard in the workshop or office areas. So, any questions on what we've covered so far?
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You will hear 3 students on a media studies course talking about a film they are planning to make. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Razor. This is Helen.
Hello.
We're really pleased you've agreed to join us on this film project.
Yes, your experience is going to be so useful.
Well, I hope so. It's the technical side I know best. Lighting, sound and stuff.
But you think the script is okay?
Yes, I think it's great. Have you decided where you're going to shoot?
Well, there's the watermill scene at the end, and we've thought about some locations in town we can use. They're behind the shopping mall and on a couple of residential streets, and in an empty shop on campus. It means we don't have to worry about getting permission from a shop owner.
So, do you think we should go to all the locations with you?
It would be a good idea. We need to talk about the levels of background noise, so we know they're all going to be reasonable places to film.
But the sounds of traffic will make it more natural.
I think Razor means things like aeroplanes, trains and so on, that would mean we have to stop filming.
Exactly. And also, I'll make notes for myself about what lighting I'm going to need. I think the university department has a good range of equipment, but I'll need to make a list for each location for my own reference. Anyway, once we've had a look round, you can do the roadworks check.
What do you mean?
You need to find out about building work or roadworks, because you could start filming one day and come back in the morning to find one of the roads has been dug up. The local council have to be informed about things like that, so you can find out from them.
OK. Then I think we need to work from the script and put together a list of all the scenes and decide which ones we're going to film when. We need to prepare the shooting schedule day by day.
You're right. Then, when you know how long filming is going to last, you can tell everyone when they're needed.
OK, so as soon as we can, we'll audition, and then when we contact people to offer them parts, we can send the exact dates and make really sure they're free. Because often the actors are all enthusiastic, but then when you try to pin them down about whether they're really free at that time, you find they've got exams or something, or they're off to a festival just before, and you have to rush about looking for replacements.
Then we need people who can take over the main parts if one of our stars falls ill or something.
Yes, I agree. So offer the main parts to the people we really want, and then look at other volunteers who were okay.
Yes. We can select the understudies once the main roles have been confirmed. So, once we've got that sorted, and we've held all the rehearsals of the main scenes, we'll be ready to start filming.
Yes, that sounds good. Anything else?
Well, just housekeeping, really. We don't actually need costumes, because actors will wear their own clothes. My family has agreed to lend us some pieces of furniture which we need, so we'll go and fetch those the weekend before we start.
We'll provide food and drink during shooting, so I'm going to borrow some cool boxes.
And I've got a little van. Most of the locations are within walking distance of the halls of residence anyway. The only one further away is the watermill.
Ah, yes. Can you tell me about that?
OK. Hang on a minute. I'll get my notes. There's a plan in them.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Here's the mill. You see, basically you have a vertical water wheel which was used to power the grinding stones.
It sounds really interesting. Will we film inside?
Yes, that's where the final scene between the girl and the man takes place. Our plan is to fix one camera outside by the window next to the door to film through the window, and then have another handheld camera inside the mill. That means we can get two views of the same scene. We were going to do something using a mirror, but we decided that would be too complicated.
Yes, by doing it that way, all we'll need is lights on the inside, next to the wall behind the wheel, which can shine across to the opposite wall.
Will that give enough light?
I think so, because the scene is in the evening. It shouldn't be too bright. The actors will be carrying torches too.
And we'll have an old screen made of wood just inside the door, because it's a new door and it'll look wrong. The lights won't shine directly on it, so it'll be fine.
So you won't actually show the door open?
No. There's a huge box on the floor against the wall farthest from the wheel. We'll see the girl approaching the mill on her bike. Then we see through the window and the man is inside looking at it. Then the next shot is the girl in the room with him opening the box.
So it'll be a mysterious ending.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to be a great project.
Good.
Thanks.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
You will hear part of a lecture about exotic pests given as the introduction to a course on ecology and environment. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon. I want this afternoon, as an introduction to our ecology module, to offer examples of exotic pests, non-native animals or plants which are, or may be, causing problems, which might prove a fruitful topic for seminar papers later in the term. People and products are crisscrossing the world as never before. And on these new global highways, plants and animals are travelling too. Exotic plants and animals are turning up in Antarctica and on the most remote islands on Earth. For example, the Australian red-backed spider. It's made its way to countries fairly near home, such as New Zealand and Japan, as some of you may know. Well, it's also been found on Tristan da Cunha, which is a remote island thousands of miles from anywhere, way out in the middle of the Atlantic. Now, another famous animal invader in the other direction, so to speak, from England to Australia in the southern hemisphere, is the rabbit. This was in 1830, and it might seem less of a threat, but it became an extraordinarily destructive pest. The fact that rabbits increased so rapidly is perhaps more understandable when we remind ourselves that they had originally been introduced to England from continental Europe 8 centuries earlier. This was because they were regarded as a luxury food source, and in spite of having warm fur, they probably originated on the hot, dry plains of Spain, which of course explains why they thrive in the climate of Australia. A much less cuddly example of a pest introduced to Australia, this time from America, is fire ants. These are increasing and spreading very fast. Their huge nests can now be found in gardens in the city of Brisbane, and they are costing the Australian government a great deal of money in control measures. These were an accidental introduction, rather than a deliberate one, brought to Australia probably in horticultural imports or in mud on second-hand machinery. As a biologist and conservationist, I have become increasingly concerned about these matters. Exotic invasions are irreversible and deserve to be taken more seriously, even when they aren't particularly damaging. For example, something that is not necessarily a major disaster compared to other ecological experiments. In 1975, an Australian species of earthworm was deliberately introduced to the Northern Hemisphere, in Scotland, because they were bigger than the natives. The aim was that they would be more effective than native species, but in fact they don't do more for the soil condition than the smaller locals which they displace. Although they don't do a lot of harm, as far as we know up to now, this will probably prove to have been a mistake. A much more serious case, also in Scotland, as well as other countries, along with the latest victim, Iceland, is the New Zealand flatworm. This is a most unwelcome newcomer in these regions of northwest Europe. Basically, this flatworm came into these countries by accident. It's now been realised that it was actually carried in the plant pots containing exotic ornamental shrubs and so on, and as it eats local earthworms and doesn't benefit the local ecology in any way, it is a real pest. Next, there's a further instance, this time in the water, and it's come from Japan. It's a delicious but very fast-spreading seaweed, and is one of many exotic species, large and small, in the seas covering the rocks around Australia. Unfortunately, it is replacing indigenous seaweeds and permanently altering the ecosystem. However, to look at the situation from a business point of view, it is now being harvested and exported, dried, back to Japan, its original home, where it's particularly popular. So, sometimes we may find accidental benefits from apparently harmful arrivals. Well, you could say that world ecology is now going the same way as popular culture. Global music and fashions, food and drinks are taking over from local ones in every land. And in ecosystems, we find vigorous exotic invaders overwhelming native species and natural habitats. But can we find any examples of invaders which appear to be a problem and then find that in fact they may not be such a big issue after all? We might take as an example a native of Australia, the budgerigar, the most common pet parrot in the world, of course. Because there have been many escapes over the years, it is now to be found flying about in feral flocks where the climate suits it. So, these flocks of budgerigars have been getting very numerous in the southeast of the United States, particularly in residential areas. People have been getting quite worried about this, but it has been observed that the size of the flocks has diminished somewhat recently. The fact that they are smaller is thought to be due to the fact that new competitors for their habitat have arrived from other places. That's the last example for now. What I'd like you to consider is this. Is the planet Earth moving towards a one-world ecosystem? How far would it be a wholly bad development?
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So guys, don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing as topics, listening, reading, practice test and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys, participate in everyday new IELTS listening and reading practice tests to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. For more IELTS material, visit my official website www.ieltsupdatesandrecentexams.com. The link is given below in the description. If you need PDF files of latest IELTS material, then please join my Telegram channel. So guys, please write your score below the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all guys. Stay tuned, stay safe.